lesson, I'm going to show you how to make these interlocking shapes. I really like this project because it basically just starts out as a flat piece of cardboard that you put these notches into, and then you can make really fun different sculptures with them. So to start off, we're going to make the square because the square is the easiest one to make. Now you can use scissors with the cardboard and that's fine. I'm going to use a utility knife in this just because I can do it a little bit faster with a knife. But if you've never used a utility knife before, I suggest talking to a parent or an older sibling who has, because this is a very sharp blade. It's a razor blade that's inserted into this handle. And if you haven't used one before, get some instruction because you really can cut yourself with this. So if you haven't used this before and you want to try this project up by yourself, just use an ordinary pair of scissors. It takes a little bit longer to cut through the thick corrugated cardboard, but it still works. And if the corrugated cardboard is a little too hard for you to cut through, use something thinner like a cereal box or a cracker box or something like that. This will work the same way with anything that's nice and stiff like a piece of cardboard. So I have a larger piece of cardboard here that just came in some packing material, and on it I have drawn lines to make 6 6-inch squares. Now my cardboard happened to be 1 foot by 19 inches. So 6 inches happened to be a good size for me to use the majority of this cardboard. You can make your shapes any size. In fact, it might be fun to do some shapes that are larger and some that are smaller. This technique will work for any size. But for today, we're going to do 6 inches by 6 inches. So I'm going to cut my cardboard. And I have this nice ruler that has cork on the back of it that makes it so it doesn't slip. So if you are going to use a utility knife, finding a nice straight edge, like a metal one, works great. Because a wooden one, sometimes you can cut into the ruler a little bit and it ruins your ruler. So a nice metal ruler works well, or a nice metal straight edge works well if you're going to use a utility knife. And also having a nice sharp blade works well too. But again, if you're a little unsure about using a sharp tool like this, ask for help or just use scissors. Okay, so I'm going to just put that one aside for now. And then I'll cut out my square. Now this project requires the use of the ruler a lot, because one thing that's really important with this project is to know how thick your cardboard is. This cardboard is 1/8 of an inch thick. So each one of my notches on my square has to be 1/8 of an inch thick. So to cut the first notch, since I have a 6-inch square of cardboard, I need to find where 3 inches is, because half of 6 is 3. And we need to find the middle. So I'm going to measure 3 inches here. And then I'm going to do another 3-inch measurement further down the board. And draw a line halfway through the piece of cardboard. And then I'm going to do it in the other direction. I'm going to measure 3 inches on this side. And 3 inches here. And draw another line. And then since my cardboard has notches in the corners too, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and line it up with the corners of the cardboard and draw a diagonal line this way and turn my cardboard and draw another diagonal line this way. Now, on my cut cardboard here, each of the slits that I have made is 1 inch. So I need to do 2 things. I need to measure 1 inch along each line that I've made. So here's 1 inch from the side, and here's 1 inch from the side. And I'll do that all the way around. Go to my corner here, start at the corner and measure 1 inch. And then just go around, line my ruler up with the sides and measure in 1 inch all the way around. And then, remember I said that since my cardboard is 1/8 of an inch thick, that I need to make this slit 1/8 of an inch to make sure that my cardboard fits together. So I just line up my ruler here and I mark 1/16 of an inch, which is usually the smallest, the shortest marking on a ruler, on one side, and 1/16 of an inch on the other side of my line. And that will give me 1/8 inch. And I can just do that all the way around. So I will mark it down here as well. And then I'm just going to draw a line all the way across, just easiest to do it that way. There we go. And then where I made my inch mark, I can just extend it across. Such a small amount of space that I don't really need to use the ruler for that. So I will, again, I'm just going to go all the way around my square here to each line and mark 1/16 of an inch on one side and 1/16 of an inch on the other side. So now that I have my cardboard completely marked up with the places where I need to cut, again, I can either take a pair of scissors and cut in to my cardboard here and just cut right up to that 1 inch mark. And this gets a little tricky with scissors because I need to cut this little piece out. So I am going to take my utility knife and just poke the front tip of it in and just flip the cardboard over and make sure it's cut all the way through. And then pull out my piece of cardboard. Or again, you can take your ruler and line it up with the lines that you've drawn, the outside edge of the lines, and make one cut. And another cut right up to that inch mark. And sometimes with a utility knife, you need to do it more than once. That's why sometimes using scissors is a little bit easier in some ways, because you only have to do one cut. And then I'll poke my utility knife in and just kind of flip it over and make sure it's gone all the way through. Because with corrugated cardboard, there are many layers you have to go through. If you were, say, using cardboard from a cereal box, it's much thinner. And with the cereal box, your slit wouldn't need to be 1/8 of an inch. This would be too big. Your shapes wouldn't fit together nicely if you made it this big. You'd want to make it just the same thickness as your box, which probably would just take 1 or 2 cuts of the scissors just to make it so it fits nice and snug together. So I'm going to go around to each of these areas and cut out my slits. So now that I've cut every single area that I had marked, I have my first interlocking shape, which is a square. I chose to make not only a square, but also a triangle and a circle. So I'm going to show you how to make the triangle and the circle next. To make the triangle, I take another 6" by 6" square and I find the center. So I'm going to measure 3 inches here close to the top. And 3 inches kind of close to the bottom. And make a line right down the center. So we're just going to make one center line. Now we know one side of the cardboard is 6 inches because every side of the cardboard is 6 inches, right? Because it's a square and squares have equal sides on all sides. But if I just measured up to the top here, I would get not 6 inches. I would get about 6 3/4 inches. So that's too big. I need it right at 6 inches. So I'm going to keep the bottom of my ruler where the ruler starts, right at the 1. And I'm going to angle it right where it meets that center line that I drew at 6 inches and make a little mark. And then I'll just draw a line from that mark to the corner. So now I know this measurement right here is also 6 inches. And then I'll do the same thing, except I already have my mark now, so I don't really need to measure it. I just need to line up my ruler with the corner and that mark at 6 inches. And make sure when you do this that your ruler is actually at the corner and actually at the place where you marked, because it does move when you move it. So we'll draw the line all the way down. And here we have an equilateral triangle that's 6 inches on every side. So I'm going to trim off this area here to make the triangle. There we go. And so now I have my triangle. Now, because I want a slit on every corner, since I already have a line going this way, I can mark 1 inch from the top here, from the top point of your triangle. And then, again, measure 1/16 of an inch on this side of the line and 1/16 of an inch on the other side of the line. And I'm just going to go down here and do another marking so I can make my lines nice and straight. So we're going to cut one slit here on this point using those markings. Now to mark the other corners, what I need to do is turn my triangle and measure from corner to corner and find my 3 inch mark on this side. And then I'll find my 1/16 of an inch and 1/16 of an inch. And then turn it to this corner. And let's see, we'll just kind of eyeball this a little bit. So we can measure back. So as you can see, from this corner, the measurement goes all the way back here to the center of this side. And then I'll measure in 1 inch. So I know where to cut the notch. And then I'll do the same thing on this. I'll, excuse me, I'll find 3 inches here and draw my lines up to this corner so I can cut a slit in each corner. So now I have notches in each one of my 3 corners. Now I'll show you how to make the circle. To make the circle, the easiest way to do it is actually to start with your 6-inch by 6-inch square, because it is a lot easier to make measurements on a flat-sided shape than it is to make measurements on a round shape. So we're going to use the flat-sided shape first. So I'm going to take my ruler and find my corners and make sure both ends of the ruler are right on the corners. And I am going to draw a diagonal line this way. And a diagonal line this way. And that will give me a crisscross shape across my square. Then I'm going to measure my 1/8 of an inch all the way along each line. So again, I'll find my line and I'll mark a 1/16 of an inch on one side of the line and a 1/16 of an inch on the other side of the line. So now the square looks like this, and I'll show you how to cut the circle. So with the crisscross here, we know exactly where the center of our square is. It's right here where the lines cross. And that's going to help us to make our circle. Now we can make the circle in 2 ways. The easiest way is to use a compass. So if you have a compass at home, what you're going to do is you're going to stick the compass, and I'll even puncture the cardboard a little bit, into the center of the square. And I'm going to have the pencil of the compass go right to the edge of my square here. And this is a little tricky to do. I'm going to get it nice and straight. And we're going to go all the way around. Now, if you don't have a compass, there is another trick you can use. It's a little more fussy, but it can be done. I have a thumbtack here tied to a pencil. So I'm going to stick my thumbtack into into the hole in the very center, and I'm going to use this string, and I'm going to go around my cardboard. It's not going to make it will make a good circle because you're going the same way around, but your circle might be a little wavy. It won't be as straight as the compass is, but it will allow you to kind of get a decent circle. Now, of course, if you have a lid that's the right size, or something else that's round, a jar, a coffee can, or something else you can trace, I would say use that. It would be a little bit easier. But if you really needed to make your own compass, you can make one with a string, a thumbtack, and a pencil like this. It's just, you're going to get kind of a rough circle. So you may want to go back into it with your pencil afterwards and just kind of fix it up so that it's a little bit of a nicer circle. And it's just kind of a fun trick if you don't have a compass. So once you have your circle drawn, I actually like to use scissors for this because it's really easy to make straight lines with a utility knife like this, but it's a little bit harder to make a circle. So I'm going to take my scissors this time and cut my circle. Okay. So now my cardboard looks like this. I still have my crisscross here. I have a nice circle cut out. So what I need to do now from the lines that I drew is just measure in that 1-inch space to cut out my notches. So I'll take my ruler again and put it right on the edge of my circle and line it up with the existing lines and draw right where that 1-inch notch is going to end. And I'll just go all the way around here. And now I'll just do the cutting. So now I have a couple of squares with my notches, a couple of circles, and a couple of triangles. So now I can start building. And I encourage you to make as many as you have the patience for, and make them even in different sizes, or you could even try different shapes. You could try a star, or a heart, or an arch, or smaller circles, or smaller squares, or smaller triangles. But what you're going to do is you're just going to fit them together, notch to notch, and start building. Now, I happen to like the color of the brown cardboard. I think it kind of makes a nice sculpture when it's all the same color. But you certainly could paint these. You could draw on them with markers or crayons or colored pencils. You could glue fancy paper to them. And you can get really creative with these. But what's fun is the more you have, the more you can build, and the bigger your sculpture can get. And you'll come up with some really interesting designs and interesting ways to make it stand up. And see how big you can make it with all of your shapes. If you've had fun making this project and you want to share your project with us, please email photos to info@catskillartsociety.org, and we can post them on our social media pages so everyone who follows us on social media can see your project too.